Hey,
Hi,
Debbie.
everybody. Hi.
Hi.
How's everybody doing? Hi, Jackie.
Hi,
Hey,
guys.
it's good to see you. How's your new job going?
I've been very, very busy.
Oh, my goodness. I'm surprised to see you.
Yeah. I actually have the days off now that we do our videos, so I'll be able to be on all the time.
Oh, great. Hey,
Yay.
So,
see, the universe made that happen. And
yes.
Andy, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Doing good. Yeah,
Uh,
getting excited. I've had people ask me about our story contest. I had a few people asking me, where's the link? Where do I go? So that's good. So
oh,
that's
good.
exciting.
Yeah, for you
Yeah.
guys that don't know, we have a story contest with a $300 prize. So for your good, scary paranormal stories, you can submit as many as you want. One at a time, though, at psychicfixes.com. And the title bar says the story contest. And get in for a great prizes, wonderful prizes. But we have a great guest coming on today, Reverend Kevin Lee. So we want to get him in here in just a minute. And so I do want to do his introduction. We're doing really good, and we hope you guys come in on Friday the 13th because we're going to have a spooky show this Friday. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. But we do want to get started because this is when I first was in contact with Reverend Lee, uh, it was amazing what I was hearing. And I can't wait to share that with you guys. And he's going to tell us all about it. But let me tell you just a little bit about him. He is a senior minister and spiritual luminary in leadership of the Metaphysical Chapel of South Florida. Now, that's in Fort Lauderdale. In addition to serving his ministry full time, he's a published author, a mystical researcher, and a metaphysical speaker. And academically, he continues to practice nursing anesthesia for almost 15 years. Now, that's an amazing job. And I had surgery once, and I had that person there, and they were just top notch. It was wonderful. Great experience. Since his spirit guided push into the world of metaphysics and spiritualism back in 2007, he has undergone a total transformation in body, mind, and spirit. My gosh, I can't wait to hear everything. He studies, trains, and experiences with all types of healing and mediumship as well in various countries, and has helped him develop his own style of evidential message delivery. That's interesting. That is truly from his heart. His studies and trainings received at this is great. United Metaphysical Churches in Roanoke, Virginia, at the Arthur Finlay College of Spiritualism and Psychic Sciences in England, and the Inner Spiritual Center in Fairfield, New Jersey, are his three most celebrated places of learning that have helped him achieve the spiritual richness demonstrated through all stands for today. That's amazing. That's a lot of education. He is now a certified spiritual medium who often raises money for churches, nonprofits, charities through his public demonstrations of mediumship, public speaking, and mystical research presentations. Oh my gosh. This is an interesting man. His love of all things religiously, mystical, and paranormal have fueled his passion for precipitation mediumship and the preservation of the rich yet rare history of such spirit writings and images. His current precipitation research, guided strongly by a spirit team, has led him to begin work towards a literary piece editors are now calling significant for our history. That's amazing. Let's
Wow.
bring him in. I can't wait to hear everything he has to tell us.
All right.
And he's coming
There
in.
we
Hello.
go. Hi, good
Hey.
evening.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
Kevin.
Reverend Lee.
Great to see you, Miss Debbie and Mr. Andy.
Well,
Nice
we
to
just,
see you.
you just don't know. It's an honor to have you here. We're so
Thank you,
excited.
guys.
And we've talked, for quite like a month telling everyone that you were going to be here. Now, I just told everyone your introduction and all this great education and experiences that you have gone through. And so we'd really love you to tell in your words a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, basically, let me take this off. Hold on. Maybe this will help. Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but I'll work with it. And so I started back in 2008, and I traveled over to the Arthur Findlay College in England. And at that time, I was beginning my mediumship development, and I had never seen really professionalism in mediumship to that level. And as I went through a few different programs there, I actually noticed that I just had a natural tendency for bringing through information. And when I went, I didn't believe that I had the potential, but because I noticed that other people were developing, I was hoping that I had potential. So that's really where some of the mental changes in me took place over a short period of time. Sorry about that. The feedback is really giving me a... Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's do this. I'm going to change this up so I don't have to hear myself. Bear with me.
Okay.
Okay,
that's
let's work
fine.
with that. All right, sorry. Now, so after I went to Arthur Findlay College probably 4 times in 4 years, and I studied trance healing, I studied healing energies, various different healing modalities that they taught, and then I also worked with the physical aspects of mediumship as well as the mental. I really left with a very grounded sense of what was possible and what I wanted to focus on. So I really decided to step forward with my mental mediumship and push forward with that. And when I came back to the United States, I entered into the United Metaphysical Church's seminary program just for the educational aspects of it. And then I noticed that there were a lot of students also working on their mediumship, and they had a mediumship development program that was a 3-year-long program. So I enrolled in that and began working, demonstrating in churches, in all of our churches, when I would travel. So we have probably 16 churches from Michigan down to Florida, so I had plenty of places to serve. And even in my own church, there were plenty of opportunities to serve during the church service or in evening galas, things like that. And then once I completed that program at the what we call Mother Church, the United Metaphysical Churches, I went on to another program that a medium I admired named Bill Collar had set up with another lady, Sharon Subas, in Fairfield, New Jersey. And that was at Inner Spiritual Center there. And it was a 2-year program that trained you. Initially, it was an international training program where we would work with different people from different countries through Skype and through different conferencing type videos. And then we had the opportunity of traveling to those countries to demonstrate in their churches. But by the end of the program, we realized that we just weren't able to get it set up. But we still finished the development work, and that program took all of everything that I learned to a whole nother level, because Bill Collar and Sharon taught us such detailed information on how to make connection, how to do whatever we were trying to do intuitively or mediumistically, in a much more refined way, when we're working with the public or when we're working privately in our own business. So those 3 programs were really outstanding, and I always refer people to them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Andy, you have some questions for him?
I do. So Kevin, how did you first learn about this rare ability called precipitation mediumship?
Sure. Bear with me. All right. Okay, so back at around Christmas time of 2007, I had just been with my church for about 6 months. And it's interesting because the minister of my church had asked me to begin public speaking at the church, to help out more, and to write a sermon. And I, at first, was very much turned off by that because I did not see myself as someone who had the authority to stand and deliver any type of religious message or product. And she had hinted she would love for me to become a minister, which really turned me off because, again, I just didn't feel that I had what it took to be a minister. I didn't feel I was worthy enough, holy enough, whatever. I did not believe in myself. But it was interesting that she encouraged me to write this sermon at Christmas. And the way it all began was this. She wanted me to speak on the metaphysical interpretation of the birth of Jesus at Christmas time. I knew the Christian story because I grew up Southern Baptist, but I knew nothing about metaphysics. Again, I was 6 months new into all of this. And so she handed me a stack of very old books. I consumed those books in 2 weeks and wrote this sermon, and I turned it in on a Friday night to her. And then the next day, she had already prepped me, and she wanted me to experience my first seance. So she said, go to this seance tomorrow and enjoy yourself. And that seance happened to be a card writing seance. So that was my very first introduction to the world of spirit in a very profound way. I went to this seance. The medium was Reverend Hoyt Robinette. And there were probably 25 people in the room. It was held during daylight. They just dimmed the lights a little bit. And the medium began the session and delivered messages to random people from their loved ones, from the spirit guides that worked with them. And when he came to me, he actually called out my name. And he said, I need to come to someone named Kevin. And I thought, well, you probably saw my name on the list. But his eyes were, he was sitting in a chair, his eyes were closed, but he still had, I know now, he heard clairaudiently to come to me. And then he brought through my grandmother's name. He described her perfectly, and he also identified her as that she was a dairy farmer and that she lived near a railroad track, which was very true. And he also identified that she had no knowledge of mediumship or the type of church that I was in. She never would have understood what this type of church was. So I thought that was very interesting. But she did say she liked my church. So that's a very important point, and I'll come back to that. And then the next message he came through, he said, now I'm not being silly because it's Christmas, but you have Mother Mary and Father Joseph energy all around you right now. And they tell me that you're working on a project. They are working with you on a project right now that's very important. And I thought, how in the world does this man know that? And so he listened to spirit for a little bit longer, and he came back and he said, they're telling me that like the church you have found, if you will stay there, you don't have to, you have free will, you can leave. But if you stay, you will change the lives of thousands of people. It's up to you. And I thought, what is he talking about? How can I do anything for that many people? And it didn't really make sense. And then when he basically brought through that Mother Mary and Father Joseph were very proud of the work that I had begun to do at my church, to help save my church, I realized I was not being judged by these spirits, and I was not being judged by my family member in spirit. I was being supported and loved. And so I found a bit of healing in my mind and my spirit especially. And when the event ended, as we opened the precipitation basket that the medium had in front of us the whole time, a card came out for me that was a picture of Mother Mary and Father Joseph in a very Renaissance style painting. And I was shocked. And on the other side of the card was the name of my grandmother and a few spirit guides that I had not met yet. So that began my journey. And when I went home that evening, I will tell you, I sat on the bed. I did cry. I was shell-shocked. I didn't know what had just happened. I didn't know what this phenomena was called. But what I did realize was he had taken away the fear that was inside of me, because what I didn't mention was probably within days, if not weeks, I was about to leave my church, because I had still that, I'm just going to call it a washing of Christianity in my mind. I had grown up with it. I couldn't get away from it. And I was tormented between, is the devil misleading me? Is Satan misleading me somehow? Am I being sinful by nature? I really want a relationship with God in the spirit world, and I don't want to screw this up. So I was in a huge turmoil mentally and spiritually, probably for a couple of months. And that evening, I realized the turmoil and the torment that I had created for myself was gone because of this phenomena. And as I sat there crying, I decided, I don't know what the heck this old man just did, but whatever this is, that's exactly what I want to do for people in my career. And I'm going to figure this out. And that literally began the journey of why I'm on this radio show today.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Kevin, how many people are there who can demonstrate this today?
I probably know 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Probably 5. 4 in the United States. 1 is in England. And if we talk, let's talk spirit card writing first. In regards to spirit card writing, which are some of the images that we'll probably put up at some point and show people. These are little 3x5 index cards. They've been around. These are what mediums have used for probably 50 plus years. And in these cards, on these cards, spirit will write or precipitate images, pictures, symbols, things like that, poetry, all types of things. And so with these index cards, yes, just like that. That's actually the front of a card. We call that spirit card writing. And so that justifies the front. And on the back is what we call the bonus side. And yes, there we go. That is the most beautiful side, of course. Everybody loves this side. It's actually the back of the card. And this was, Spirit is always told by the medium that they can artistically present whatever they wish to present on the card. So that's what my mentors have told me, that they told Spirit to do. And it's truly amazing the detail that come through these cards. Most people do not believe me when I share it with them, and they believe it's been Xeroxed or it's been hand-drawn or it's somehow been scanned and reproduced, and it's not. I have been to, I don't know, probably over 20 easily of these apport seances of the, precipitation seances, and I have seen these cards be produced, and I've actually seen them produced in front of my eyes. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I would say there are 4 mediums that produce these cards in the United States. One of them is probably entering a state of retirement, probably a second one within the next few years. A couple of the others stay very much off the radar so that they're not obligated to demonstrate publicly, but they're my mentors. And then there's a lady in England, I don't want to forget her, a dear friend, Sandy Ingham. She's a spirit artist. She'll draw your loved ones, and she is capable of drawing your spirit guides. And she works with black charcoal, drawing your loved one while entranced. And what we've noticed is over the last probably 2-year time period, I met her 3 years ago, probably 2.5 years, let's say, she's begun to get precipitated color on these black and white drawings that people take out of the building or take out of the churches, take home with them. So it's precipitating onto, very lightly, but in the cheeks or in the hair or the eye color, it's precipitating for her. And very recently, she was painting, I'm not sure if it was acrylic or oil, but 2 children's faces began to form after the painting was starting to dry.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I mean, this must blow people's minds because
It does.
This is just fantastic. Now, I grew up, Kevin, in a spiritualist church. And
oh, you're so lucky. Oh, you're so lucky.
My great aunt was a cook there, and then my mother took over the cafe. So there was a lot of materializing things, but never anything like this. And we had photographs, pictures of people came in and out, developed on paper, but this is just amazing.
But I'm also sure you probably had spirit writing that spirit precipitated, and you don't know where the pigment was from, right?
Well, I never was in on that, and I'm not sure everything they did. I was kind of young at the time,
sure, but
it was just amazing the things that would materialize or were tangible. And this is, that first picture blows my mind. And so I'm very open to all of this, only because of my experience that I've already had. So to other people, they must be just going, oh my goodness, I can't wrap my
Truly.
head around this. Can I ask you, like,
Yes.
how many times have you actually seen this done?
Probably, I would say I've seen this over 20 times. Exactly, it's somewhere around 20 to 25 times, because I was thinking before I got on this call, actually, how many times have I been to these types of gatherings? And then I thought, let me go count my cards. But I've been to these experiences where I didn't receive a card, because sometimes, due to various reasons, it could be the physical health of the medium. Maybe they're mentally exhausted, physically dealing with something, or maybe the medium was young and they could not produce but a handful of cards where there may be 15 or 25 people in the room. So I didn't always get one, but I got to run around and take pictures for my collection and ask lots of questions. So that was good enough for me. And I do want to say, I don't think I mentioned it earlier. You mentioned you grew up in a spiritualist church, and I'm incredibly jealous. Our church system and our founder, Reverend F. Reed Brown, is a precipitation medium. He continues to produce cards occasionally. He doesn't demonstrate it very often. He used to do it a lot more when he was younger. And he was born into a spiritualist family. So he founded, back, I would say in the late 1960s or mid 1960s, he founded a whole church system that had its own seminary, healing development program, mediumship development program, educational program. And he basically he had to come up with a name for the organization. So he called it the United Metaphysical Churches, the Religion of Divine Metaphysics. So it separated us from the spiritualists because we were teaching principles of reincarnation, and that was not very kosher at the time. So he wanted his own system where he could control the churches, the ministerial process, the mediums, the healers, all of that, and he's done a wonderful job. So I just wanted to let you know that if you come to my church or our churches throughout the country, you will literally feel you have stepped into a spiritualist church, because we run them almost identical. Our principles are the same, maybe a couple of more here and there, but everything you hear from the platform and all the demonstrations of healing and mediumship, it's totally spiritualism.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
If the audience has never attended, seek one out. I hadn't gone for such a long time, and I made a meetup, and we went down to San Diego, and I'm a psychic. I don't have anybody read me. And there I am sitting, bringing all my people in so they could get a reading and a healing. And I was blown away by the Reverend singling me out and telling me absolutely all this stuff, everything. And I just stood up and I said, I'm giving you validation. This is amazing. But it's so wonderful to go and get that healing. And you're what a wonderful job you have as the anesthesia nurse. And they're wonderful. Oh my goodness. I did have some one that took me through a very difficult surgery that turned into something that was going to be very short time, 2 hours. Oh. And he was fabulous. I always give it up to how wonderful that career is. And then to be in the healing as far as in metaphysical healing is wonderful also. But let's get back to this. What's the most unusual and interesting experience that you've had with this phenomena? Because I'm so excited to know more.
Okay, I will tell you, I did not get to witness this, but what I will tell you is one of my mentors, who is a precipitation medium in our church system, he was telling us I would say probably must have been about 15 years ago, he said, and they wanted to do an experiment during a seance, and so they removed all of the crayons and the colored pencils and the ballpoint pens and the little brick of charcoal. And they wanted to try to see what flowers would do. So somebody went and brought purple irises and shoved them into the basket or the box that the medium was using. And with the cards, after everybody magnetized the cards, closed the lid. They began to Om. They did all their prayers. Then he delivered messages for probably 30, 45 minutes. And then when his guides told him that everything was done, they opened the lid and he stuck his hand in the container and he thought, what's going on? And he pulled the flowers out and the flowers were solid white.
Oh, wow.
Solid white. They had taken the pigment from the flower petals, and now they also took, unfortunately, all the cellulose. Cellulose is a very sticky resin. It's probably like the ectoplasm of plants. Mm-hmm. They took the substance that held the pigment out of the plant, and because it was whipped around and laid by the spiritual energies inside the container, that whole container, it was total disaster. It was covered in the sticky resin that ruined the container, and the cards were a hot mess. The images were pretty recognizable, but there was still stuff was smeared, and the pigment didn't really lay properly because it wasn't their normal. They were used to crayons and colored pens and maybe some charcoal and ballpoint pens, and they had never used this before through the medium, so it really turned into a disaster. And the medium was not so happy, threw his container away, got a new container, and everybody had a good laugh. But that was pretty interesting. Now, I had mentioned our founder, Reverend Brown. He held, it must have been, I'm going to say probably 4 years ago, he held a weekend that was a precipitation and card writing and physical mediumship development weekend. So we talked about all aspects of physical mediumship, but we really focused on precipitation and card writing. So he used to, as a young man, hold red light card writing precipitation seances. So he would have a little lamp that would emit a red light, and it was on a rheostat, like a dimmer. And everybody would take these stacks of cards, these blank white index cards, and they would all hold them, they'd magnetize them, they'd ohm, they'd pray, and then they would place them on the table in the middle of the room where the red light could touch them, and the light was turned way, way down low, almost off. He would intuitively or mediumistically sense what spirit wanted them to do. So they would continue oming, they would sing different songs. He might give some messages if spirit came around. And over the course of probably 30 minutes, not long, ever so often he would get the inclination to turn up the rheostat very slightly. So the cards would literally begin to develop because of the red light. So at some point, he said, let's turn it up a little more. And we were watching this evening. We were looking at the cards. We could hardly see them. They were so faint. And the light got just enough bright to where we could see the little faint line of the edge of every card, but we couldn't really make out the cards individually. But we could see a tiny bit of something. Their cards were still blank. And as he said, Spirit's telling me now's the time. I want 3 big ohms, and we're going to turn the light up slightly a little heavier. And as we did that, I'm not kidding you, you could see multiple images phase right into those cards, and they were all laying on each other like, what is it? Like you fanned the cards. That's how we had placed them. And you could see different images under every card partially in that red light. And we howled and screamed. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I've only seen it once. I've only seen it once. That was amazing.
This is really crazy, but in my house, Kevin, things fly. All kinds of paranormal stuff happens.
I want to come to your house.
I know. Well, I also have a investigative team and a team of mediums. So we do look at my house a lot. I'm so excited that I really want to do this.
You should. Anybody can do it.
Now, how long has this been around?
Well, I can tell you from my research, a lot of people think that it's only gone back about almost 200 years. But a friend of mine, I'll give a shout out to him. Hopefully he's watching or will be watching. Reverend Sidney Schwartz from up north. And Reverend Sidney, my buddy, he found an old book from that was written about the 1500s with, what's his name? Martin Luther, that's his name. He's the gentleman that basically created the divide for Protestantism and Catholicism, right?
Right.
Well, one of his family, he had two daughters and a wife. And his wife died, and they would always sit in the parlor by the fireplace, and a light began to come into the room. And as the light came into the room, one of the daughters went into a deep trance while the other one stayed awake. And then pretty soon, probably several months later, they noticed that writings and pictures began to appear in one of the journals in the room. And it was because of the mother. So there's actually, in this book that I was given for my research, there were images, I guess you call them facsimiles or examples. They weren't hand-drawn, but these were images that were added into the book. And the book was probably little over 100 years old. But that I thought was the oldest. But as I continued to do research, I noticed that in my biblical research of the Bible, that there's actually 3 perfect examples of precipitation and spirit writing. And that kind of blew my mind when I started realizing that. And I thought, well, I wonder how much further it goes back. I don't know how much further beyond that it goes, but I definitely have my biblical examples that I've discovered. So that's interesting.
How long or how does Andy and I learn to do this? I mean, how many decades do I have to go through in training?
Well, it's funny. See, you must be a psychic because you literally know the answer already. It's funny you say that because my 1, 2, 3, I would say 3 of my mentors, it took them 15 to 17 years to where they could sit with their sacred container, say their precipitation basket or maybe a shoebox, a small container, with all the coloring instruments and cards, and they would sit with people or friends, and they could produce every time they sat. But it took 15 to 17 years of almost daily dedicated sitting. I'm not joking.
Wow.
I'm not
Okay,
joking.
you're not dashing my dreams. I'm going to do this.
And I will tell you, this is just my thought. We are in the age of Aquarius. We have left the age of Pisces, right? So the age of Aquarius has to do with a quickening of the planet. The planet has become more spiritualized. And so I personally believe that we are seeing the result of that on television, on radio, on the internet, like we're doing now. There are these venues where people can talk about all things paranormal, alien, fairies, cyclops, Bigfoot, all kinds of strange things. And it's becoming more normalized. So I truly do believe that it's not just talk about the age of Aquarius. We're seeing it in the people. We're seeing mediums on TV doing demonstrations, or healers, like the Australian healer that was on TV last year, Charlie, I forgot the name of the show. An incredible demonstration of healing in front of the camera. It blew my mind to watch that. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing a lot of things like that, and it just blows my mind. I think we're literally becoming a much more spiritual planet. And let me tell you this, I'll give everybody a little bit of hope, because 15 to 17 years, I was willing to bank and invest on that. I'm about, let's say, probably 8 years into my development. I have a ways to go, and that's okay. Divine timing. But a dear friend of mine who is, as far as I know, the youngest precipitation medium that can do this at any sitting he does, is he's about 31 years old, and it took him 6.5 years to develop, and his gift came forward in about mid-2012, right before I was ordained the next year. So it goes to show anything is possible, and he developed in 6.5 years, where all of his mentors, which were really the same people I know, they took 15, 17 years. So I think there's something to the age of Aquarius and the spiritualizing of the people and the planet. There's got to be a connection. I just believe it is.
Kevin, did everybody start out as a developed medium? Did they come with a natural psychic ability and then go into this? Or can you just, any of our viewers go and learn this?
Well, I'll tell you this. Everybody's got psychic potential, right? Everybody even has mediumistic potential. Psychic potential means you and I can sense the energies of each other. I can sense the energy in your auric field. I can sense the energy from my soul to your soul. If I choose to work as a medium, I am connecting my mind to spirit mind. And so that is connecting with spirit personalities, right? So everybody has different potentials, and whether you work as a healer or a psychic or as a medium, everyone has varying potentials. Even if you're let's say a pianist, okay? Some children are born virtuosos. Some children are born, you can barely train them and they take off. There are children that you really have to put in a lot of effort with, but they catch on and they do really well, and they can play weddings or parties or things like that. Then there are other children that you pour yourself into, and those children barely produce, don't want to produce. They're just not really interested. And there are some children that maybe for health reasons or mental reasons, they're not capable. Okay? And so I would say it's a very same with being a psychic or healer or a medium, in the sense that we all have varying potentials. I have found over probably the last 9 years, let's see, what is this, 9 years? 9 years since I've learned about this, that if you get excited and your soul starts burning for this, and you just are like a kid in a candy shop, and you want to read everything about it, and you want to go get you a shoebox or a sacred snake charmer's basket or something, and you want to throw some crayons and some cards in, I guarantee you're going to produce, because you are attached to your heart chakra in that moment. And it's the people who are passionate that will produce it. If you're interested and you want to give it a go, no, you're not going to produce it most likely. You'll give up. And I've seen that. A lot of people will come to my lectures, they get excited, and within a couple of months I check in, they're like, no, I think I'm going to focus elsewhere. I said, I did say it would take possibly 15 years. It's going to take a while. You know, you don't just get it because you took a weekend course. I think we in America, and I've seen it in England too and overseas, unfortunately, in metaphysics, I'll just use that as a broad term, or spiritualism, there's a lot of inappropriateness with 1 day, 2 day mediumship certification seminars.
Yes.
And that is grossly unacceptable to me. I don't agree with that. I've put in my time. I've sat in development circles for 10 years. I'm in 2 different ones right now. And you must always be learning and developing. And the minute you say, I know it all, I don't need to do anymore, I hope nobody comes to your events, because you're not going to be doing them any service. Your vibration is already dropping. So I believe very wholeheartedly in pouring myself into, this is really my nursing. This is an extension of my nursing. I am giving of my heart and my spirit and my mind and my body and my money. I've spent, as you can tell from what you read in the very beginning, I've spent a lot of money and time and invested a lot in myself, not only in my nurse anesthesia career and my registered nursing career, but also to become the best medium I can be, because I want to change people's lives, and I have to do it. It's just me. I can't do it halfway. I've got to do it 100%. So that's why I work so hard to do what I do.
Well, we can tell that your passion is there. That's for sure. I know that Andy and I, that's our mission too, is to make sure that we help. And if anybody comes in crisis, we always embrace them and do what we can.
Wow, that's what it's about. Thank you.
Right. And going back to this thing where I'm saying yes, 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 is so many times I see people go for a weekend. I teach a lot of things. One is tarot, and they actually go for, a day or a weekend. And I'm like, you're coming to my class, you're going to pencil in some weeks, It's just amazing that that happens. And then they lose interest, of course.
They do.
And so you do have to have the passion for it. But I want to tell all our viewers that my personal experience was to grow up and know things. That was just like a natural thing. I didn't think it was any different to kind of know what people should do, or I felt a force field. But throughout your life, this is a gift from God, and thank you, God. I say it all the time during the day, thanking God for this. But let me tell you, you go through things in age times, and you're downloading more stuff. I feel like God has given me the gift more. And one way I always tell people, don't do what I did, is a near-death experience. It really came in. Oh my goodness. I mean, I got so close that I think that something came into me, and all of a sudden I was hearing it all. And then later on, I hit an age milestone, and then there were the spirits I longed to see, and describing who they are. So working with this and working towards it and going to psychic development classes and mediumship classes and practicing is something, if you really want to do this, that you need to be involved in. And God will bring you what you need. The people to network with, the perfect class, and you'll find your calling and your passion. And we can see that Kevin has found his passion in healing in so many ways. Now, I know we need to ask a couple of questions, but I do want to ask you, so do you do energy healing?
I do, to a small degree. I have a small clientele that I work with locally, and it's strictly private. I don't advertise it too much, but I do have an ongoing healing prayer, like a basket that I keep on my altar at home in a special place. And when people who come through my church or reach out to me locally on Facebook or something, I usually will throw their name in the basket and spend time once a week at a specific time to do distant healing. And you know, it's interesting. I'll mention this because it came up last week. Someone said, that distant healing stuff, you know, you psychics, you guys asked for $5 or $20, and how do we know you're really praying for us? And I said, well, you really probably don't. But do you know my character? Do I give of myself 100% to my church? Do I give of myself to my community? Do I do charity events? I'm probably the type of person who will keep up what I post on my, let's say my website, my calendar. I don't want the karma. I would not want the karma of taking people's donations or their love offerings for prayer work, healing work, things like that. No, I'm very karma driven. So, I
actually have a great big jar, and when I have a meetup or in emails, because I do readings for people all over the world, they'll ask for healing, and I send healing energy, and I also I don't have time to tell you all the stories, but it works, guys. Energy healing works.
It does work. It really does.
Yeah. And I put them in, and then whenever I have a yogi or a healer or somebody come into my house, they all always know to go over and put their energy in for everybody that's in it. And
I love that idea.
Isn't it? So when you said you have a basket, I go, yep, that works. But you did have something that I'm intrigued with. And I don't know if it's the Bank or the Bangs sisters.
Oh, yes.
Who are they? Could you tell us? Because I'm like, who are they?
Sure. The Bangs sisters were a couple of ladies, young ladies, back in the, I'd say probably mid 1800s, who began demonstrating publicly together. So they were, sisters. And so it was a nice way for two ladies to travel together safely, because at that time, women typically didn't travel alone. And they certainly didn't travel with men that they were not married to. So this was a nice way for them to work in tandem, churches, public events. They could generate income for themselves along the way as well. And what they noticed, they were very physical mediumship oriented, I'll say. Their mental mediumship was outstanding, I heard. And they started noticing, they began with what is called slate writing. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, slates. Remember when we were children, and we had those little chalkboards that we played with, and they were probably plastic around the edge, but they had a strange piece of like charcoaly slate in the middle that's black.
Oh, yeah, and you write on it.
Okay, and you can write on it and then wipe it off. Well, basically, before we had, paper was very expensive in the 1800s, but back then they had slate boards. And so they had chalk. Those were very inexpensive. And they actually were real slate, real rock. And so back then what they would do is they would place a couple of these slates face to face, meaning the side you write on, and they put a tiny piece of chalk or two in between, and then they would tie it with a rope, and they'd either hold it between themselves or it'd be in one of their laps while they gave a demonstration. And by the end of the demonstration, they would open the slates and there would be writings and images, right? And so that really began their precipitation, because that chalk was precipitated. It was apported from the chalk itself into spirit through thought control. Their spirit guides reformed it into what they wanted on the slate and then rematerialized it back onto the slate in this dimension. That's how they do it. So they take the pigment out of this dimension, work with it mentally, and lay it down back into our dimension on the, let's say, canvas, whatever the foundation is they're putting it on.
Oh, wow.
And so that began. And then as they went along, they began to think, well, could we use canvas? Could we use material? What kind of paper or cardboard could we use? So it began to advance from there. And eventually they started doing framed canvases. They'd put them face to face, canvas to canvas, and they would stick them in windows where sunlight would pour through both of the canvases into a darkened room. And they would each place one hand on the opposite edge of, or actually the edge closest to that medium or that sister, and they would touch it and they would hold it while they did a demonstration. And the guest reported that, and actually there's some nice articles written up about it. They said it was as though smoke began to appear and move inside these canvases, and it would swirl around building a bodily form, and then you could start seeing color building in that very hazy image, because it literally was building between two canvases. But the sunlight could show you what was taking place. And at the very end, they noticed the eyes always came in last. But when they would pull those canvases apart, one canvas had absolutely nothing on it. It was not affected, but the other canvas would be covered in full body portraits, partial portraits, landscapes, things like that. And that began their sun paintings, and then it advanced to them using a type of paper. I don't know exactly what it was, but probably the really early stages of paper that would produce pictures and photographic stuff on. And, well, I'm not saying it's photographic paper, but it was definitely basic paper. And that paper, what they would do is that they would place pots of paint or something like that under the canvas, and they would touch the blank canvas that faced the audience, and then the image would literally begin to appear the very same way as it did through the window, which was like a field of smoke almost on the canvas that moved around almost snake-like, if I can say that. It had an intelligence. It was being controlled. The body would form, the head would form, the hair would form, jewelry would form, clothing would form, and then the face would form, and the last thing that would appear would typically be closed eyes, sometimes, and even sometimes then, if they appeared closed, they would instantly snap to being open, and then that meant the painting was done.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Crazy.
You know, Kevin,
Yeah.
my girlfriend and I took a picture of her and we put it in the Bible. I got to find out where in the Bible we put it. And she called me. It was a Polaroid. So it was photographic paper. And she called me. We looked at it once in a while. And we did take it out, and color was in it and all kinds of stuff. But I looked at her and I go, you don't have long hair, and you never had long hair. And the picture, she had grown a full head of hair going down her arm. And we just could not believe it. I said, and you do look at least 15 years younger.
Wow.
Creepy.
We look at that picture once in a while. The hair's still long just to see. And I've got to ask her to take it out. But at the Spiritualist Church, we would take a photograph of someone. They would put it in a special thing, and I don't know what verse it was in the Bible. And they would get it out afterwards, a day or whatever. And there would be faces and all kinds of things. And it continued to change.
That's called scotography. I love scotography.
Oh, see, I'm so excited over this. I totally am ready to.
Amazing.
Well, I'm somebody who jumps in and tries anything, and I'm not afraid to do it. And
Wow.
I'm just like, this would be just so amazing. Andy,
You can
would you
do it.
want
I
to
want
do
you to
it?
do it.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
going to do it.
oh yes. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It's just like,
Definitely.
and Kevin, what do they get from this? Do they interpret this as a message that's drawn, or?
Absolutely. In my opinion, it's just so incredibly healing. Everything we do as ministers, mediums, healers, servants in our spiritualist churches, everything that we do is healing in its most basic element. Because if everything is love, what we're doing is we're sharing love. This work that the mediums demonstrate, this, let's say, communication from spirit, it's another expression of love. It is them letting us know evidentially. It's highly evidential. The stuff that is in my presentations is even way beyond what I've even shared with you. It's unbelievable. But they literally want us to know everything you grew up hearing. We are not dead. We are alive. We are with you. We support you. We guide you. We are here to heal you. We send you prayers. It's all of that. And I would say that this phenomena is, it literally creates the space that transforms everybody's lives into just a higher vibration of truth, because a lot of these people come into this not knowing what the heck it is. And when they leave, and I was one of those, I'll admit it, I'm still a skeptic. I thought this is the greatest magic trick, or this stuff is real, because I don't understand what I just experienced.
Yeah.
And it is so mind-blowing, and it's such a change in your sense of reality that you either love it or you really don't like it and you don't want to come back. And I don't find people in the middle of the road. If I do, maybe it's military people or cops or something, but I would just say it changes lives. And the purpose of it is to uplift you and heal you. And that's why Spirit does this for us.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a wonderful message. And can I ask, the pictures that you that we showed, were those ones that you actually saw and took pictures of?
Yes. Yes. These are all ones that I'm just looking real quick to make sure I have. Oh, let me move something real quick.
I mean, that one
yes,
that
that one.
Andy
Actually, I
put
took
up
a
is
picture
amazing.
of that one. And this was from a friend of mine has this card. And this was at one event. So I ran around snapping images. And it just goes to show different layers in the card. You can't tell there, but all of that color, that red, the yellow, the orange, that is a layer of crayon, and it's very waxy. But when you go below it to where the body is, which is where you can touch the lower part of the card, it just feels like a card that somehow has pigment embedded in it, but you can't really feel the pigment, but it's still there. So it's almost like multiple layers on the card. And Spirit said, yes, there's another example. Spirit literally says they lay the pigments down in layers. And the reason, and I know that what they're saying is true, is because when we get to the point where you see all the names in that writing, you will see these very strange lines. That blue one's my favorite. That's my joy guide. That's lilac.
That is so wonderful.
It's beautiful, but stunning.
Hey, well,
but
they have talent.
It's amazing. So when we get to the one that has Spirit writing and it shows those names, there it is. Do you see those little horizontal and vertical marks, those lines? That's the edge of the ectoplasm laying down the pigment.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yep, those are, so it literally rips around. It's roaring inside the sacred container or the box, and it actually is laying down, rematerializing the pigment, and that is just kind of the sloppy edge of the phenomena where it leaves a mark on the paper. Okay, so that's what that is.
So I see lilac on that. Kevin, yes. I was in a hotel room and I had two sisters with me, and two were gambling because it was a casino.
Fine.
And when I went to sleep in one bed, because I'm the baby and I always get what I want. And my other two sisters were in another bed. And my other sisters came knocking in the morning, and my sister got up, turned the light on, and they came in and they all turned and looked at me, and they just were just like their jaw dropped. And embedded in the wallpaper above my head was old script. You have to go back to, I don't know how long. This old, beautiful, and it was in English, this big D, flowing E, B, O, up to the R, and then a flowing G, which was my maiden name initial. And it was like it was pressed in. And they were like all up crazy. And I said, oh, are we going to have to pay for that? But
oh, no.
What I'm seeing in yours, you have more modern type of writing. But mine was a like old English style. So
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if this wasn't one of your guides.
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, but that's my life.
Me.
That's my whole life, guys.
Yeah.
I forgot about that until I was looking at the writing and I go, oh, I remember seeing writing. And I don't know how it got pressed into the paper, but I said, pack up, let's get out of here before they see what happened.
Wow.
But when you get this modern drawing, do you think that you're getting a guide that's more, or do you think that these people actually lived before in a certain time period?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically the phenomena is taking place because our spirit guide, your precipitation guide in particular, you may have one or two of them, but they've had a life on Earth and they're humanized, and that's why they're one of our guides. So the writing is interesting because the writing can be very basic. It could be childlike. It could be very advanced. It could be very old, like apparently your guide had written in a type of script, and that's your signature. And I can look at cards now that people bring me, and I know exactly who produced them. And I generally know what year they were produced because I have so many of these, and I've documented when at what phase of development was that medium in what year. And so what I can show you is in that writing there, well, no, it's not on that card, but I have some cards where a very famous medium at my church system, who is a physical medium, we have her signature in our museum on several things. And on some of my cards that I've received, the exact cursive handwriting signature appears on my cards that exists in the museum of her.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. So they can bring through their script. They can bring through their titles and their love of all their titles, Dr. So-and-so the third, junior, whatever. They will put those things in there. They actually tease me. And my name, Reverend Kevin Lee, is really my first and my middle name. I don't typically use my last family name. And but it's funny because I've received cards where they will place 3 dots behind Kevin Lee to tease me as though they know my last name, but they won't write it. It's funny.
Well, you know what? Even though you try to be a little anonymous, I have another name. And my team went out to Colorado and they were going around a mausoleum, and the last picture, I look and I go, are you kidding me? There is my stage name and there is my real name on the dead people's coffins.
Oh, so you have a place you can go now.
I go, well, I think they're calling me to go to that. Was it Chesman Cemetery in Colorado?
Wow.
Somebody's a calling, I'll tell you. And they do call me. People go out to some of the memorial parks, and where the one girl was killed here, and their ovulus will say, Debbie. They say, hey, they want to know where you're at.
I love it.
You guys, to the viewers, and the one thing is, when this comes out, we instantly get about 100 views, and then it builds and builds. So the people will be watching this, and this stuff is real. And I know that on our shows, I try to tell you that, yes, the cracker box shakes and waves at me, you know, that things fly and they do all kinds of things, or they wake me up when the alarm doesn't come off very nicely. So this thing happens, and this is so amazing. It's like, where has this been all my life? Yep. And oh my goodness, Kevin, okay, can you stay on for 4 more hours? No, I'm kidding. Just like, or come back or something, because this is I'd love to. so exciting to and identifying with it and letting everyone get exposed to this, because there are so many things that are out there. I keep telling you guys that we can communicate with the other side.
Yes, we can.
Absolutely. It's here today, and it's just growing in the ways that we can do it. And it keeps changing for me. And like I said, with where I always said I was just a tarot reader and I'm psychic. And then all of a sudden God goes, well, here, now you get to see them. Now you get to describe them. And now you get to communicate with them. And it just is possibility for you guys to do it too. Like Kevin said, everybody has an ability. We need to go ahead and use it. And
Absolutely. You know, this is what I tell my students when I am working with, say, brand new healers or psychics, or maybe even brand new young mediums that are trying to develop. I tell them, you know, this is how I was when I entered my church and had no clue what it was, and I fell in love with it and realized I was home. But I thought, how do these psychics and mediums and healers become? Did God give them this ability? And then I really started realizing a lot of them had started developing. And so they took all these courses. So I ran all over town. I ran all over state. I drove out of state. I flew out of state. I flew out of country to go anywhere I could find a course that seemed like it would teach me something new I'd never heard of. And I tell my students, I give you permission for the first 1 year to go crazy and take every class there is, because I want you to experience every type of metaphysical expression, fairies, aliens, dimensional DNA shifting, healing, psychic, crystals, ayahuasca. Go try it all. And then after that year, I want you to focus on, when you look back in your year, what themes or topics or classes did you take that excited you, that stirred your spirit, and that's what you need to focus on as your gift, and start with one of them and really promise to just focus on that for 1 solid year. Do not add anything to it. I know we all want to. I'm an overachiever. I did.
Yes. Yeah.
And I probably could be further along, but I can't help myself. I still do it. And but I'm telling you, the people who devoted, those students, they have skyrocketed beyond the students that did not focus and that tried to study a lot of different things over many years. So you really have to try to master your healing gift for a year or two before really you push into more psychic or mediumistic aspects of the work. So that's what I encourage people to do.
You know, that's really true, because I have one particular student that takes everything,
Yep.
like a meetup class. Like
sure it wasn't me?
You know, no. Well, she
That's me.
takes it, but I'm like, once she settles down, I'm like, that's fine, but once you find what you really want to do, and then we'll go with that. But yeah, that's amazing. So, hey, you having any events, or do you have online events? Can you tell us about where you're going to be? Where can we see you?
I'm very excited because this will be the first time I'm presenting at both spiritualist camps in the United States. The Camp Chesterfield up in, I believe it's Anderson, Indiana. And that will be July 28th. And I'm presenting, make sure I got my title right, Precipitation Mediumship, Rediscovering History and Your Hidden Potentials. Okay, so I love that title. And basically I'm presenting my journey, all of my research from, say, ancient biblical times to modern day, and where I see the phenomena moving, which is really my friend in England. And just to really show the incredible amount of intelligence in the phenomena. You know, if mediumship is to be helpful, it needs to be evidential. And this work is not only gorgeous, it is not only unique, and it definitely is well, I'm not going to say it's fresh and new, because it's been going on for a long time. But I will say it's so unique and so transformational. It's so powerful that it literally is a healing tool just by the demonstration, because you're not only proving that there is continuity of life, You're also proving your loved ones are not annihilated. They're right there, and they're around you. And even those that you were talking about earlier today that you may not have talked about in 10 or 15 years, but they signed their name on the card, you know that they're literally with you at every moment. And you also can see humor in the phenomena. So you get a very dynamic sense of intelligence and personality in the phenomena, which is so transformational. Art and writing is beautiful. I love it. Who doesn't love an art museum? But this phenomena, this art, takes it to a whole new level, and really, it just transforms people. It has the power to change lives, and that's why I'm passionate, because it goes right in line with all my ministerial work and everything I say on Sunday mornings. Love it.
So, Andy, all the links are on our page and everything. We're also going to upload it to YouTube, to the Psychic Life channel. And so we'll get it out there. Also, I really feel like Andy needs to meet Lainey, who's in Florida.
Oh,
we'll tell you about her. She's amazing, amazing,
that would
great
be wonderful.
connection. She's working in a music thing to heal the earth. And but anyway, she's in Cape Coral, so you're a little bit off there. But I had to laugh when you said Anderson, Indiana, because that was the last name that I was talking about.
Oh, well, I knew that. I knew that, right?
Find me.
I'm psychic.
There you are. You are psychic.
Hey,
well,
Miss
we
Debbie,
want to thank you. Yes.
real quick. I didn't mention that I'm also right after Camp Chesterfield, July 31st. I'm going to be doing the same presentation at Lilydale Spiritualist Assembly there. So I definitely would love for the viewers to come check that out. And just FYI, my website host informed me today my website is down of all divine timing. So my website should be back up in 24 hours. So there was a server glitch today. Okay.
Do you have Facebook?
Yes, I do. I have if you look me up, Kevin Lee Medium, you'll find my Facebook timeline.
Oh, perfect. So you guys can go in and find out all about that. Well, I'm ready to go and put things together, and would be, my family would probably really laugh that this is an artistic endeavor of some sort here, since I'm very not, and they are.
I love it. Do it. And you're not doing it. Spirit is. That's the best part.
I know. Thank goodness. It's going to be good. Kevin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Good to see you too. Thank you for everything.
Okay, you guys. To our viewers, we want to thank you so much for coming in and experiencing this with us. Carlos.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Let's do it. Carlos is in the house. We have to do that. He's like our Norm on Cheers. We'll see you guys on Friday the 13th, and then you'll hear a lot of my ghost stories, okay? Jackie, love you very much.
Love you guys.
And we will talk to you later, okay? So glad that you'll be able to be with us each time.
Yep.
Andy.
Yep.
Hey, my love. Let's get cracking on that next book, okay?
Right.
All right, you guys. We're going to go to the lobby. And so, Kevin, you can stay on. And we're going to just say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.